Good evening, everyone. All right, let me get this link shared out on all the various platforms. Then we'll get into the charts. I hope you're all doing well. Just sharing in the Discord. Let's share in the Telegram. And then on Twitter. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you all here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to clear off the charts, and we're going to look at levels on higher time frames and lower time frames, and a few different options I'm interested in, or possibilities. Let's just establish where we're rejecting from. This was a major level of interest. You know, it was actually a level of interest when we were here, and I made a video saying that, because initially back in December I thought this was a likely major high, which it ended up being a major high, but I thought that this 28,000, if we were going to see a deeper rejection, the 28,800 level, retesting this, and there's this nice harmonic and some other ideas, would be a nice level to tap. So we've tapped it. We have a strong rejection. Certainly not a swing short. I'm eager to close, but that does not mean I won't take other trades, other shorts, other longs, while sitting in that swing until this level is reclaimed, because we could certainly come retest it without reclaiming it. So I think it's an important level to look for shorts. But let's clear off the chart. And let's just take a look at the naked chart here. I know I just deleted it, but first I'm going to pull a volume profile. And let's just note, you know, if we do start seeing a retracement, there's not a lot of structure here on the daily chart. This move can get retraced very quickly. It's one of the reasons I'm targeting under this low for my swing. We do have some lower time frame levels of support that can hold for a trend continuation. So we have our 786 right under this low. I think that's an interesting level. And then our golden pocket's at this low. And we have our old point of control before we came down to these lows, right around 19,100. So I think for a high time frame level of interest, this is certainly a level that I am going to be watching as we approach it. And we have a very clean entry trigger. And so understanding that, you know, when you're making your trading plans, it's not necessarily it's your only plan or price has to do that or you're not taking any other trade. It's just being prepared for certain levels and having a plan to trade them if and when they come, because sometimes those moves can happen quickly. But the general idea here would be to come down into this $19,000 level. And my entry trigger would just be a sweep of this low, a reclaim, and a stop under this new low. So waiting for that reclaim as a sign of strength. And depending on how price action develops there, I think that there could be a really clean entry trigger. But let's look at some lower time frame levels of support. We'll go to the 15-minute chart just to break up the structure a little bit more clearly. And we'll start with our most local levels. We have this wick. This level here. And this is this level where we wicked into was actually our retest of the old high at 26K. And I consider this an important level because it's our SR flip, right? And we still are above it. We have the initial rejection up here. But while we're holding this level as support, we certainly could see some continuation even back into testing these highs. But so immediately, what stands out to me as an interesting setup locally would be to come down at some point and sweep this low and reclaim it. And the reason this is a nice scalp entry is because you have really tight invalidation. You have a clear liquidity idea here, sweeping these two lows. And yeah, that's probably a scalp I would certainly be interested in trading long. It will look something like this. And the main thing that I'm always looking at, I'd probably look to close some of it locally. We have our range point of control here, and I'll review these levels after. It's around 28K, and that aligns fairly well with our golden pocket. So around 28K is like a local retracement target. It's a high volume area on our volume profile, a local fib. It's kind of a retest of these impulse lows. And so I consider this important local resistance and this important local support. So around 28K. I don't know if I'd be interested in shorting the initial touch of this. I'd have to see how price gets there, if there's some clean structures. But for now, I would say interested in seeing a little lower locally for a potential scalp long. We also have this structure below us as well. That's interesting, but I wouldn't look for trades off this unless we break this level down and then reclaim it like this. So this is probably likely to generate an entry trigger, and an entry trigger does not mean the trade has to work. We also could pull some fibs from here as well. I don't think we have the 0.5 fib there, so that might be okay. But there's not a lot of structure attached to this golden pocket fib. We are arguably price would need to come down pretty quickly to sweep this low into this channel. Certainly possible, but that would be some extra confluence for a long setup around 26K. And I call it a scalp because ultimately you're longing in a local range off local levels, and you have major resistance overhead. So it's certainly going to be smart to take profits, I think, off a position like this locally, and not be targeting something like 30K with your entire position. Certainly could make sense to leave some of it open. We have these lows. So if we break this range down, yeah, something like this golden pocket could be interesting, mostly because it's there isn't a lot of structure here, but there's certainly this idea of retesting these highs. A sign of strength would be reclaiming this level, but we might get some local structure as price comes down here. So let me talk a little bit about, you know, why it's important to plan all these different levels. And so for me, I like to have plans at key levels, and I might get into a situation where it, and for example, I took some scalp longs, like I longed here on Bitcoin, targeting up into the highs. And this is a scalp long. Yes, you're longing under high time frame resistance, but there's local bullish absorption, there's local structure, and I had a plan coming down, sweeping this minor low. And so anyways, it's nice to have these plans, because what can happen is price can do this, this, this. And instead of just waiting for one level, oftentimes you can find nice entries, take profit, and even if you eventually get stopped out break even, or just take full profit and price comes back to entry, You can find a few nice setups along the way to deeper targets. And then maybe you form some sort of descending structure and something like that. And work your way down into the deeper targets. So I would say, looking at the chart now, for long setups I'm interested in are a sweep of this low at 26,600, a sweep and a reclaim down into this $23,000 region. I think does look interesting. What I would like to see is something like this, where we front run the level, maybe we reject here, we consolidate, and then we have a local swing failure, a local structure break and reclaim, making the entry cleaner, the entry trigger cleaner and the invalidation cleaner. And it's sort of similar to what we had here at 28K, 28,800, is as price was actually pushing up towards this level here, I was interested in shorts. And I was actually saying in the Discord some days ago that I'm probably going to short aggressively and move up into this level. But because we have no local structure, entry triggers and invalidation can be a little murky. And ideally, you want to form a range right under the level that you're interested in trading, because that gives you local structure breaks, right? So anyways, it's easier to trade when you have a local structure as entry triggers and invalidation than if price goes straight into a level and then straight back down. And that should make sense, that straight up and straight down is a little harder to trade than some consolidation, local structure. And you know, it's important not to get too caught up on the low time frames when you're looking at key ideas. You know, obviously we had a lot of volatility here around the FOMC. And this volatility is going to have shaken a lot of people out of a lot of positions just out of fear. But you just zoom out and this idea still looks very clear for shorts up here. Yeah, so I want to also point this out. We can just push higher and we can never come down test these levels. That's perfectly fine. You have no control over that. But for me, you know, after this initial rejection, seeing this and then jumping into a long here without a key plan, but I'm not saying there aren't ideas here. You know, we have a sweep and reclaim of this low. That certainly looks reasonable. It's simply not something I'm trading, but it's very possible we don't get any of these levels and price goes up through the highs and you're left without having found a long here, which for me is fine. You know, I say this often, the market's not going anywhere. You're going to find great setups every day. And it's really easy on a day-by-day basis to think, you know, back here, I can't believe I missed this short. I've been waiting for this. You know, you're back here. We swept this high. You rejected. And now you're FOMOing and, oh, you can't believe you missed whatever long. And you feel like you've missed every opportunity on the charts. But if you zoom out, there's opportunities every day. And great opportunities every week. And so there's no reason to feel like you've missed everything if you miss a setup. Just planning and trading reasonably, not FOMOing into positions is the way to go in my opinion. But there's certainly some ideas here. We actually do have some bullish absorption forming on Bitcoin and CBD, which is one of the reasons I'm interested in scalps. And I wouldn't be particularly surprised to see price push up back through the highs here, but nothing you can do about that. I want to note too, ETH is kind of front ran a fib here. ETH is tapping an interesting structure. I have it extended, so I'll just zoom out a little bit so it's a little more clear. Actually, let me do this. It's probably arguable that this should be pulled here. So we have this ascending channel, and we are bouncing off of it. We do have a reclaim of these local lows. It would have been interesting, I think, to sweep this low into the golden pocket, but the timing of it didn't quite work with this ascending channel. Just eyeballing it, there might be some descending structure here. Interesting. So this would be a nice level. You know, you could imagine if Bitcoin comes down and sweeps this low, ETH doing something like this. I still do prefer ETH longs here, like ETH setups over Bitcoin setups. I think ETH has more upside potential from here in the local and medium time frame. But yeah, this stream, you know, it's actually been a long week for me. I've had a little bit of trouble staying rested. You know, it's funny because what will often happen for me is as price comes up and starts pushing up into a key level like this, a level, you know, when there's a level I've been waiting for weeks or months, which I would say this is one, as price comes up, I really do want to be alert and awake as price is consolidating. You know, sometimes you have to, I think for the average person, certainly not worth messing up your sleep schedule. But for me as a full-time trader, it's something I'm willing to do. But anyways, so I am happy to be patient here and wait for some nice setups and maybe catch up on a little bit of sleep. But yeah, let me read through some of the comments here. I will say this. If we break out of the highs, I think that sweeping this 32K high, quite likely. But frankly, I'd be a little surprised to see a major rejection there. Certainly could generate a short trigger. Maybe come back and retest these highs. But there's high time frame ideas that send us right to 50K if we break out of here. So I still do have some longs from lower. And I'm still interested in looking for longs for this idea. But I really do want to have shorts from this high. And I know that can be confusing to some people to be trading long ideas and short ideas at the same time. But for me, I still have longs from down here at 16K. The most clear way of explaining this is, well, I have longs from here. Maybe I'm even targeting 50K. Let's just say, for example, from these lows. But I know price isn't going to go straight there. And there's certainly other longs and other shorts I'll want to take along the way. And looking for shorts at resistance, longs at support, letting this position run. But just because I have a swing long here doesn't mean I want to sit on my hands and do nothing when there's great trade setups. And taking shorts at resistance helps alleviate some of the pressure on this position as price starts coming against it. And it makes it psychologically a little easier to sit in a swing long through all this chop when you also have shorts running, right? And you know, okay, I'm expecting, you know, generally down here, I was expecting something like this, 5 waves up, sweeping this high, down into this 19,002 region. That's essentially the exact price action from a level perspective that I was anticipating back in December. But even if you have that plan, you know, it can be a little bit uncomfortable sitting in a long as you see price coming down like this from the highs, 20%, without shorts. So I like trading both ways for that reason. All right. And this won't be a long live stream, but I certainly wanted to review some levels of interest here, and I'll look to share some charts in the Discord. But like I said, wouldn't be particularly surprised to see a push up here. And there's certainly some local long ideas, but I'm interested in waiting for this if we get it. That's right. Someone says, where am I from? Someone replied, he's from the streets. He knows what's up. Someone says, any key levels between 25 to 26K, CT looking at the area as a potential bottom. Yeah, I mean, this is still a range, right? Like that's one thing that I always like to point out is, yes, we have a major rejection here, but we can very simply break up our key structure here. I'm on the 30-minute chart. We can see price generally interacting with these levels. We have a reclaim here. You know, what was once support can now act as resistance. Support, support. We might see this acting as resistance. We do locally. Same with these levels. So it really, any level in this range can act as support. Actually, one thing I do want to check, because this is important, is where is our 382 from this new high? Makes more sense to pull this from the highs. I mean, I honestly quite like this idea. I'm going to be paying attention to it as price reaches it, or if price reaches it, rather. And I always update. I always, you know, my is the right Latin term modus operandum is I set alerts as price approaches the level. Sometimes I like to have an alert a little bit above the level. I like to review the charts, review order flow, and typically give an update on Discord. Sometimes, you know, I do technical analysis, and it can be high time frame stuff on alts or whatever, and I kind of forget about the level. I'm not even watching that chart, and I get reminded of it when an alert goes off. I pull up the chart and I review the price action, consider my position. Someone says, so you think it's going to bounce and retest the high? Question. I don't necessarily think it is. It's just price will do what it does. You know, although I can be relatively accurate, I'd say quite accurate with my analysis. Ultimately, I'm not trying to predict what price will do. I'm looking for technical triggers based on my system. I'm looking to execute that. I'm looking to have short ideas at the highs, long ideas at the lows. And when eventually, unless price ranges forever, one of those levels is coming, either the highs or the lows. And I'm looking to trade them accurately and accepting the risk, managing the risk, and just being patient. And so whatever happens here is somewhat irrelevant, because price will just either move up or down to great trade setups. And if we just break out here, there's going to be great trade setups overhead. There's going to be great trade setups on retracements. And the market will keep producing these great setups. You just want to be prepared and patient, waiting for them, understanding you won't catch every move. And you shouldn't try to. Feeling like you need to participate in every move is what leads to FOMO. And part of that can just be, you know, you can think you're an unbiased trader. And I like to think that I'm generally unbiased, and I like to look at the charts objectively. But, you know, you can start thinking, for example, let's just say, for whatever reason, I missed this short, and it was my high time frame idea. And I say, I can't believe I missed this. Price is rejecting. You know, we're obviously going to 10K, whatever my bias is. And now I just start opening shorts anywhere. I'm not even looking at the setup. I'm like, I missed this. I need to get into this move. But the reality is, this is a great short if you're ready for it and you can short near the highs. But you don't know what's going to happen, and you shouldn't pretend you do. And so if you've missed a great short setup, you should just be planning a new short setup. I don't think you should be chasing moves based on some preconceived notion of what you think is going to happen. Yeah, and like for example, this is an area on the chart. I shared this idea after the fact on Twitter, but I talked about on Discord, where we were consolidating here. Initially, I was interested in waiting for this low to be swept for a long, but we had major bullish absorption here. I said, you know what? I would like to see something like this. Come down, sweep this low, fake out this ascending structure. We kind of had a triangle there. Certainly something you could imagine a lot of people would be watching. Fake it out, reclaim this low, and that was a long trigger for me. So I'm going to take that aggressive scalp long, and I want that long. And this is what I'm explaining, my thought process, because I'm going to be shorting up here aggressively. I have longs on retracements on this move up, but what I want is to have longs coming into this level, and I can short aggressively. And then if there's weakness, I can start taking profits off my longs. But in this critical kind of moment where price is flirting with a breakout or flirting with a breakdown, I'm building my short position, but I have my long to keep me comfortable if this happens. My short gets stopped out, my longs carry. So whenever price is reaching a critical point on the chart, I like to have a trade. It's sometimes you don't, but I like to be prepared and have trades moving into that level. And what you can do is, if you get a little too caught up in your ideas, you can say, I'm quite certain, which I would say relatively certain or sure that price would push up and take these highs. I'm just going to wait for that and short it. I'm not interested in anything in here. And but the reality is there's very clean setups on the way up, and I may as well look for some of those before the highs get taken. All right, just gonna finish up a few more comments here. And yeah, sorry, I'm not necessarily I wouldn't say in the mood, but I'm not planning on doing a super long live stream here, but I did want to go over some key ideas. Can I go to 28K 0.2 and then go down to 19K, or go up to 32K? I think everything I just explained there sort of answers that question. Would you short another push into the 28,600, or would you wait for higher levels around 30K? I'd be interested in shorts, certainly. I'd be interested, this region of the chart certainly still looks interesting to add to shorts. But part of it also depends on how price gets there. Do we see this low first? Do we see structure on our way up? Do we just go straight there? So I know that that's not what people want to hear, but that is something I consider. For example, back when I said I'm interested in a sweep, and I explained this, I think, clearly. I'm interested in, I think I even said, as long as we haven't taken this high first. I'm interested in longing a sweep of this low into the sweep of this high, but I'm not interested in longing a sweep of this low if this just happens. If we're here, I have the setup ready, I'm interested in it, but instead we go straight up and then this, I'm not interested in longing that sweep anymore. because we've swept the liquidity above the highs first. And so the simple answer is I am potentially interested in shorting up in this 28K region, even the 28.6, which would be a retest of these highs. I think looks interesting, but I do want to see too how price gets there and have we swept these lows first or not. But yeah, I think this region is still certainly shortable. For example, if I say I took profits on my short, put my stop here, and I get stopped out, well, I'm way more likely to be looking to. I want shorts from this region, so I want swing shorts. All right. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up the live stream. It's relatively late in the evening for me, but I thought it'd be nice to go over some levels here. And ultimately, what I would say is this: for everybody who is working on their own analysis and trade systems, is the most important thing is risk management and patience. Think about your setups. Think about your positions. Have a plan for both directions. Oftentimes what I'll do is if I'm in a position, short or long, I'll say, you know what, if we just break these levels, I'm going to sit in my swing short. If we see some consolidation, strength, and we take some highs or we get nice reactions, I'm taking profits off my position one way or the other. So it can either be lower or it's going to be if we see any strength here. And oftentimes it's nice to have a plan no matter what happens when you're in a profitable position, that you're going to be capturing profits one way or the other. This question has caught my eye, so I'll answer it before I head off. Jonathan asks, are there any other types of trading that you think are pretty good? There are countless types of trading. Ultimately, I'm not going to say any one way of trading is better than the other. The most important components are that you have an edge, that you have a system that you can execute, that you're using risk management. I think my style of trading, it's hard to beat. You see setups on, this is something that I talked about in Discord the other day, but you see setups where people are making 1% on a move, 1R on a move like this. Invalidation, 15% away. And the reason that doesn't interest me, it's not that it's a bad way of trading, but I can make 10R here. I can trade very precisely with tight invalidation, and a lot of my positions hold up. I like that way of trading. But people like breakout trading, they like doing other things, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my preferred style of trading. I don't see a reason personally to be looking for shorts here and having invalidation 15% away. I'd rather just get stopped out and then look for positions higher than run stops that wide. So, yeah, Jonathan's saying tight invalidation can be stopped out a lot is the problem for new traders. Absolutely. But I would say I actually, most of my setups, people won't like to hear this, but I actually usually trade them a little tighter than I share even. Like I might share a setup like this. Even here, a 1% stop loss, I think is reasonable on this entry trigger. Stop below here. And I typically suggest that people I run wider stops, right? Smaller size, wider stops. That's going to keep you in way more positions. Don't try to find the absolute tightest invalidation possible. But for me, I'm not the average person, and I have no problem trading this much tighter. 0.5% stop, even less, because I know what I'm doing, and getting stopped out, I don't have to ask somebody else what to do. You know, it's like, if you're not a professional trader with absolute confidence in everything you do, don't try to run tight stops. And if you're going to get stopped out of a position and you have to go ask somebody, hey, I just ran my stop at 0.2%. Should I get back into a position? I just got stopped out. What do I do? You probably shouldn't be trading, frankly, but you certainly shouldn't be trading with tight stops. Look for structure. Okay, you have a structure reclaim here. That's very clear. I am comfortable trading this tight. But you might say, well, where is my local structure below? Does this trade make sense? A 4R back into the range highs. Maybe you've seen this general idea of coming down and faking out this triangle and you get the reaction. Well, maybe you just say, I might put a stop here. You can look at the structure below that and say, does it make sense to run this trade? It's a 2R. There's nothing wrong. That would be, something like I described on Twitter where people run very wide stops. This one's 2% away. Trade it as a 2R. The truth is, one of the reasons that you want to avoid tight stops and getting stopped out as a new trader, which is one of the reasons I also try to talk about what I would say high probability setups, is because when you get stopped out, that's a psychological and emotional trigger, and you're likely to start making a ton of trading errors. And you don't need an 80% win rate or to win 10 trades in a row to be profitable. But even for experienced traders, taking a 2, 3, 4, 5 trade loss streak can really start shaking up your psychology. And wider stops can help avoid putting you into those emotional spirals. So even if you're not trading an idea perfectly accurate, and what I mean by accurate is, well, your invalidation needs to be somewhere that makes sense. Certainly shouldn't be further than it makes sense. But you have the trade-off of, well, if you have weak psychology, yes, it's not perfectly accurate, but it's still viable, and you're going to avoid putting yourself into emotional tailspins. All right. That was my last question. Thanks, guys, and I'll